Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our December Georgia Republican Assembly Officer Election Convention. Thank you all for being here and standing for Republican principles, working together to advance them around the state. We've been growing throughout the past year, and we have some exciting business to conduct today, as well as some great education going on with numerous panels. And please, everyone, do two things for me today. One, check out our vendor tables in the back. There are 4 tables in the back that are here trying to spread the word about either legislation or various pieces of Republican Assembly or Republican swag and VoterGA swag. Also, the other thing, please get to know each other. One thing about these conventions that is different from many GOP conventions is, in addition to us wanting your voice to be heard, we also want you to meet each other, to network and coordinate, so that when things happen within the GOP or we need things done in the legislature, you all know each other and know who allies are around the state. Like, we try to be the good guys, getting rid of the corruption in the state. So please have a good time today, enjoy, and if you need anything, raise your hand, let us know, and I'll handle it using Robert's Rules of Order. So with that, we're going to start off today with an invocation with one of our members, Danny Bartlett. Danny, come on up.
Good to be here. My name is Danny Bartlett, and I know a lot of you don't know me. I am the field coordinator for the John Birch Society. I cover Georgia, Alabama, and the Panhandle of Florida. I wear many hats, though. I'm also the chairman of the Ware County Board of Elections and Registration. I'm also the first vice chair for the 1st Congressional District. I'm also the president-elect of the Waycross Exchange Club. And when people say, man, you're busy, I say it's my own dang fault. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. I want to read James 1:5. It says, if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach, and it will be given to him. Let us pray. Gracious and almighty God, we gather today in your presence, acknowledging that all authority and wisdom come from you. As we convene this election convention, we seek your guidance, your peace, and your justice. Lord, grant us wisdom as we deliberate and choose leaders who will serve with integrity and vision. May our decisions reflect your righteousness and advance the good of our community. Unite us in purpose, guard us against division, and let your spirit of truth prevail in every discussion and vote. We commit this gathering into your hands, trusting that you will order our steps. In all things, may your will be done, and may this convention bring honor to your name. We pray this in Jesus' name, and amen.
Thank you, Danny. Next, we are going to have the National Anthem, verses 1 and 4. Jason Cochran.
If you want to stand and sing with me, I'm really more of an instrumentalist than a singer. Sing with me.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and
Thank you very much. Next, we're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance with Mr. Ron Hooper, one of our previous national directors.
Okay, thank you. All right, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Next on the proposed agenda, and by the way, for any of you who don't know me, I am Alex Johnson. I'm the chairman of the Georgia Republican Assembly and president of the national organization. I forgot to introduce myself earlier, and I apologize. I forgot that we have gotten so big that I do not recognize everyone in the crowd. So good job to all of you. Next, Eddie Caldwell, the chairman of the Northwest Georgia Republican Assembly chapter, is coming up. Come on up, Eddie.
Thank you. Hold on.
Should be.
Thank you, Alex. So I'm the chapter president for the Northwest, which is Whitfield, Murray County, Gordon County, Catoosa County, Walker County, and Dade County. I think that's all of them. So really, I want to thank y'all for coming up here to our beautiful town, however far it was for you to come. I really want to appreciate all of y'all for all y'all do, all the doors you knock, all the politicians you cuss out, everything. I want to thank you for all you do. I know it's such a thankless job it feels like being a volunteer. I know how it feels. But it's all you volunteers, it's the work that you do that matters so much to this organization and this country, and I just want to thank you all for all that you do.
Thank you, Eddie. Thank you for all you do to lead the Republican Assembly in the region. I've known Eddie for many, many years, as I have many of you in the room. Next up is the GRA president, my friend Nathaniel Darnell. He's going to come up and give a report on what's going on here throughout the state. Nathaniel?
Hey, everyone. Thank you all for being here this morning. I know many of you came from far and wide. We have people here from Coweta County. We have people from Cobb County. We have people who are local, our Catoosa heroes that are here helping to host us. And I'm just thrilled to see all of you here. Y'all are an amazing band of patriots. And it's kind of cool. It's like watching that Avengers movie, the first time Captain America and Iron Man were together on screen. You know, we're watching heroes from Catoosa joining forces with people from Cobb and from Cherokee County. And I am so excited about the great things we are going to accomplish working together. So thank you all for coming out from far and wide. Normally when I come out here and give you a president's report, I show you a bunch of stats on our PowerPoint about things we've accomplished this year. And that's great. But today, I want to do something a little bit different with you. I want to first offer you a word of encouragement, and I also want to talk about the future of the GRA with you. You know, they say that a lot of us make plans at the beginning of the year with New Year's resolutions, and they say that people tend to overestimate what they can accomplish in 1 year and underestimate what we can accomplish in 5 years. So I would like for us to be thinking more about long-term, what we can accomplish over the next 5 years. This last year has been a year of great adversity, hasn't it? I think this year really is unlike any other year we've ever had. And it was all, I think, encapsulated, symbolized with how the year started. Do you remember how the year started? With Colton Moore getting slammed to the ground by a staff member for Speaker John Burns. And that really, became a symbol of everything we would go through during the rest of this year. And just when you thought that it was over, something else hits you. It really has been nonstop. We went through a tough convention cycle. I remember being in Catoosa. The establishment here in Catoosa that they have been fighting showed up in huge numbers to try to kick out Joanna and her team. And you realize that it came down to a vote where they elected the convention chair, and they won by a 9-point margin. Just 9 votes is what it took to defeat the establishment here in Catoosa and reelect Joanna and her group of people. It was that close. That was a nail biter. But then we went through all of the rest of the convention cycle. And we had, people blocking the microphones in Dalton, and we had other rules that were, not being followed, and we had so many different things that went weird. We had the goodbye GRA emails that went out to try to sabotage the GRA. And then right on the heels of that, we have the announcement about a Ponzi scheme, and State Ethics Commission is now giving us grief and all this stuff. It's been a crazy year. And I don't think that the adversity is going to go away anytime soon. Because the people at the Gold Dome in Atlanta are threatened by you guys. They are threatened, and so they are coming out like the Empire Strikes Back to try to stop you in your tracks. But we have accomplished a lot of great things this year. There's two things in particular that I want to continue to remind you about. One, we got the 11th Circuit Federal Court to agree that these heroes and heroines in Catoosa County have the right to not requalify rhinos who run again for office. That was huge. And that was because these folks were brave enough to persevere through all the intimidation tactics that they threw at them. I mean, they were trying to, throw over $100,000 in fines that all of them would have to pay. They threatened them with prison time if they didn't qualify these candidates. And they didn't let up. And after all the state court cases where the judges at the state level said, no, you can't do this, the federal court came through for us. Was I surprised? Do you think Alex was surprised? Do you think Catherine was surprised? Do you think David Oles was surprised the federal court ruled in our favor? No, we knew that was going to happen because it is very clear. The text of the Constitution is incredibly clear. The Supreme Court precedent is incredibly clear. We know that they were going to eventually rule in our favor. But we know that the state courts were not going to rule in our favor because the state courts are heavily influenced by the state legislature and by the governor. And they have a vested interest to prevent that from happening. So we're going to continue to get that antagonism from them, but we're not going to give up. And you're not going to give up. And we're going to be there to support you every single step of the way. So that was incredible. We haven't really fully felt the ripple effect of that. I think you're going to continue to see the ramifications bear out. But in application of that, we at the state convention this year also accomplished something very significant when we passed the resolution to block Brad Raffensperger from running again as a Republican for Secretary of State. Alex has been working to accomplish that for several years, ever since 2020, when Raffensperger first threw President Trump under the bus, refused to acknowledge some of the weaknesses in our election systems, and he's fought us every step of the way as we've been trying to promote election integrity reform. So he doesn't deserve to run as a Republican for governor next year. And we're going to continue to try to put steel in the spine of the leadership of the GOP to follow through on that commitment, follow through on that order from the delegates to make sure that happens in March when qualifying starts. But I'm going to tell you, the establishment is not going to let up. We should be very flattered that they consider us such a threat that they are throwing all these things at us. They're throwing everything and the kitchen sink at us to try to stop us. And the reason why they're threatened by us is because over the course of the last decades, several decades, I know Alex remembers, several of y'all have been involved for 10 years or more. You have seen patriots get involved because they're upset about something, and like a flash in a pan, they make a big noise and then they disappear because they're intimidated. The establishment doesn't take them seriously because they know if they throw some of this intimidation at them, they're gone. They're history. So they thought the same thing about us. They thought we were going to react like that. And we're not. And we haven't. And we're not going to. And that's what really scares them. So let's think about some resolutions and some things that we want to accomplish over the next 5 years. I want to say that I think that one thing that many of us, maybe all of us, agree we want to accomplish is we want to grow the Georgia Freedom Caucus at the state capitol. That is the next major step we need to accomplish. We got some great people like Colton Moore and Charlie Spurd and Noel Cahan and Greg Dolezal, but we need to grow that group. In South Carolina, they've got a much larger Freedom Caucus, and with a larger Freedom Caucus, they have much more leverage to get their legislation through and to stop bad bills. Now, I don't know if you heard about the agenda that the Georgia Freedom Caucus is promoting for this coming legislative session, but it's some pretty exciting stuff. This is really where the rubber meets the road. We are not into petty popularity arguments about personalities. We are about policy. And check out some of these policies they're working to accomplish. Eliminating the Hollywood tax credits in Georgia's budget. Requiring Georgia legislators to vote on the budget as one department at a time. Bar fluoride from Georgia water. Repeal Senate Bill 144, the pesticide manufacturer liability shield. Repeal all laws that regulate raw milk. Ban vaccine mandates in Georgia. Legalize over-the-counter ivermectin. Massive election integrity overhaul. Eliminate all ballot boxes. Mandate local election officials take reasonable inquiry into the completeness and accuracy of results before certifying an election and delay certification if needed. Child Protection Bill provides criminal penalties for any medical professional administering puberty blockers. Ensure parents have the right to everything related to their children's medical records so schools and others cannot hide any treatment from a parent. And then last of all, ban gender from being changed on any government documents to anything that doesn't match their biological sex. These are some of the policies that they're working to accomplish. And the Speaker of the House doesn't want them to grow because he likes being able to ignore all the good bills they're trying to promote, really all the good bills that we're trying to promote. And as long as we don't have a big caucus, we can't really stop him from doing that. So help us grow the Freedom Caucus and talk to them about some other great ideas that we can pursue. So let's make exercising number 2 our freedom of association through our political parties another major goal. That's something the Catoosa people are pioneering. They are plowing the way on that. We need all of our county GOPs to be doing that. We need to put pressure on the state GOP to be doing that. We kind of gave Speaker Burns a warning shot when we censured him at the state capitol. But he needs to know that if he continues to behave the way he's been behaving, not only by, persecuting people like Colton Moore, but also blocking bills in committees so that they never get a hearing, never get to see the light of day, never get a vote, that we will exercise our freedom of association against him and others in the state legislature that are doing that kind of thing. So let's organize and let's see how other counties, other state Republican groups can exercise their freedom of association. I would also like to see the GRA triple our current number of chapters. We had 2 new chapters that recently opened up. We have several of the representatives here today. The Lanier chapter, Tom Hortel, is our local president from the Gainesville area. We have Linda Mink, who's representing the new 3rd District, Congressional District chapter. That's exciting. But we need more activists like you collaborating together in a community of support when we get rejected or ostracized by the establishment. We've made huge gains in the Georgia Republican Party over the last 9 years. It's been 9 years. And in 5 years, I would love to see the GOP Executive Committee be led by GRA members and our allies. See those leaders start using GOP resources to hold politicians accountable. And that would include things like text alerts, legislation, scorecards for Republican politicians, engaging Republican voters in real issue-based citizen advocacy. So in conclusion, to wrap up my remarks to you tonight, or today, here's my advice. Don't let the establishment define you. You assume the center. They're going to try to say you guys are a bunch of wacky people, you're radicals, you're fringe, all that kind of nonsense. Make people realize that no, they are the fringe. They are the people that make money off of politics and just promote corporate welfare. They are not concerned about what is stated in our Republican Party platform, what represents the consensus of the Republican Party for the last 20 years, the last 40 years in our national platforms and other places. We are the center. We should continue to insist that we are the center of this Republican movement. Don't let them marginalize you. We want everyday Republican voters who believe just like you to be represented. And I want to say a big thank you. There are literally hundreds of thousands of Republicans in Georgia, voters, citizens, who are benefiting by your activism. They're probably never going to say thank you. They probably don't even know you exist. But you're still bringing them as beneficiaries of the hard sweat and volunteer labor that you're putting into this. So on behalf of all those people who just want to live their lives and have their freedoms and raise their families, know that you will be making a huge impact. Don't let the establishment shame you into expecting Republican policy from anything other than Republican policy leaders who stand for the platform. Utilize the skills that you're going to learn today from these different messages from our citizen lobbying group on how to be effective as an activist. The officers that we elect today, we are not the superheroes. We are not the guys that are going to make the change. We are here to support you. You are the Army. We are officers, mostly administrators, running an organization to support the Patriot Army. So we exist to empower you to lead and change the state for better. And with every step of the way, we're going to be there to hold your hands and to strengthen you. Let's go out there and let's make change for our state for the better. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nathaniel. Nathaniel has been doing a great job over the past year and dealing with a lot of the attacks, in addition on the organization, but also personally tied to all of this. And I just wanted to thank him for all of his work and also his work on the NFRA board. He is the membership secretary for the national organization. He was reelected just a couple months ago, along at the same time I was elected. So just wanted to make sure to give him a shout out for all of his hard work for the national organization. Next, we have updates on Catoosa County GOP's lawsuit. That will be Catherine Bernard, David Oles, Ruth. So yeah, let's anyone who's going to speak on that coming up and have a seat up here on the stage. We have about 10 minutes. So starting off, I guess everyone. Ruth is from Catoosa County. Has been dealing with this. David Oles has been he's a lawyer. He is the national legal counsel as well, the general counsel for national. But he has been fighting this in the courts along with Catherine Bernard and myself, and we've all been doing that pro bono. But they're here to talk about it. So go ahead. Whoever wants to speak first.
Well, gosh, I'm holding the microphone, so I suppose that puts me in the hot seat first. But welcome, everyone. As Alex told you, I'm Catherine Bernard, and I am a criminal defense lawyer, which has been much more relevant to politics lately over the past few years than I think anyone ever expected. But on the Catoosa County case in particular, you've heard a little bit about this from Alex and Nathaniel, but we have had some really big wins and some really big setbacks as well. And so this case is kind of making me challenge some of the assumptions that I had about the value of federal supremacy, as the federal courts have actually been much more favorable to Catoosa County GOP than the state courts so far. What this comes down to is the Catoosa County Patriots in the Republican Party came up with a system through their completely open, transparent, and rule-based process by which individuals seeking to qualify as Republicans on the local ballot would need to receive a qualifying affidavit from the party, from the executive committee of the party. And several individuals who had previously run as Republicans did not receive that affidavit because of things like voting for higher taxes or voting to restrict property rights and other things that kind of make you think, why is this person a Republican? So because the Catoosa County Republicans took action to prevent this from happening, those individuals sued the party, the individuals who were denied the qualifying affidavit. They sued the Catoosa County Republican Party and got a judge to come in during the March qualifying week and issue some orders directing them, and this is the important part, not to get too much into the weeds, but directing them to stop not qualifying these individuals for office. And now if that sounds like a kind of an awkward double negative, it's because it is an awkward double negative. That judge knew that it would be constitutionally and legally inappropriate to actually force this independent entity, the Catoosa County Republican Party, to take any action such as qualifying. So they tried to hide behind this double negative in order to get away with what they were trying to do. But thanks to brave folks like Ruth, Fant, and the other members of the Catoosa Republican Party, they stood strong and refused to violate their own rules and qualify these individuals. I had the, they definitely deserve a big round of applause for that. And so, is the microphone not on? Thanks, guys. I appreciate that. I hope I was talking loud enough for everyone. But yes, it was wonderful. I had the privilege of actually being at the Republican Party headquarters while this was going on, and got to watch some people really bravely stand up for what they knew was right in the face of, frankly, attempts at intimidation by these attempted candidates, their lawyers, and law enforcement officers. So it's all on camera. We all have that as part of the record. And so in the ensuing lawsuits, unfortunately, that first judge did rule that they needed to stop not qualifying. And so then that went to that judge recused himself along with everyone else from the Lookout Mountain Judicial Circuit. And so they brought in another state court judge. But in the meantime, Catoosa County, our wonderful, brave friends, sued the Board of Elections for their improper actions in qualifying these folks after the Republican Party had denied them qualification as Republicans. The Board of Elections said, well, we'll just put them on as Republicans anyway. Now, remember, nobody was being denied ballot access. All of these individuals could have run as independents. In some cases, they could have requalified because of their incumbent status. So no one was being denied the opportunity to participate in the political process. The only thing they were being denied was the opportunity to force the hardworking volunteers of the Catoosa County Republican Party to call them Republicans when they weren't acting like Republicans in accordance with the party platform. So this is not a matter of denying anyone access to the electoral process. And so that lawsuit, it was brought under 18 USC 1983. If you hear anybody talking about a 1983 lawsuit, it's a violation of civil rights. And in that case, first, the district court didn't go our way, but the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that the Catoosa County GOP does have the right to freedom of association, and that right is improperly burdened when they are forced to qualify people and take actions to put people on the ballots as Republicans. It was a fantastic order. And honestly, Nathaniel said we weren't surprised. I was a little surprised. Like I knew we were right, but it's really hard to get these 11th Circuit judges to do the right thing. But fortunately, our great legal team, folks like Alex Johnson, who argued in front of the 11th Circuit, and David Oles, did a great job. And that's why you didn't hear a big article about that one in the AJC when we won at the Federal Circuit Court of Appeals. What you heard about in the AJC, unfortunately, is the order that was delivered by a senior judge, David Smith, who came out of Bartow and Gordon County, and after a fairly brief hearing in October, issued, I know I'm on video and I'm sorry, but it was a ridiculous order. From the very outset, it read as though somebody was excited for the opportunity to participate in political drama. So rather than ruling according to constitutional principles, he's ruling according to things like, well, if the state legislature wanted to let you have more than their 12-word loyalty oath, they would have put it in the statute, which is completely missing the point of the fact that the Republican Party is not just an arm of the government. It is a private organization of volunteer citizens who come together for Republican principles. We were founded against the Fugitive Slave Act in the 1850s. And so I will let David Oles, our wonderful appellate counsel, tell you a little bit more about the status of that appeal. But it was a setback. And like you said, you did hear about that one in the AJC. But that's kind of the outline of where we are on this important battle. And I have to say, it has really been an honor to work with people who are willing to use their positions in the Republican Party, elected to serve the people of the community and are willing to bravely step up and put their own lives and fortunes at risk, just as our founders did when they first signed on to the Declaration of Independence, are willing to put that on the line for all of our freedoms. So thank you so much, and I will let David and Ruth give you some further updates, but that's the outline.
It's Catherine did a very, very good job of summarizing the overarching structure of the case. It's grown somewhat in complexity, as all court battles tend to do. We are now, in at least 2 different forums, in the federal court as well as in the state court. I'll talk a little bit about the state court, which is what I've been more involved in. Alex is carrying most, if not all, of the burden in federal court, so the credit goes to him. But the state court has been moving along, and state court, like so often, is where the local politicians go to get their defense because they know a lot of things. And I'm not here today to criticize how Georgia elects its judges, but I will say that Georgia has a system that is designed to elect judges, but in practice very seldom does, because the judges resign early, knowing that that gives the governor an opportunity to appoint the judges, who then run unopposed magically in the ensuing election. So as a practical matter, more of our judges, vastly more of our judges, tend to have been appointed by the then sitting governor than by votes from the people. Whether or not that's a wise system, I leave to people like you. But anyway, as Catherine said, we've been fighting some hard currents in the state court. The candidates, the sitting candidates, did take an early win in getting an injunction out of Judge Thompson, who, as she pointed out, has suddenly afterwards decided that he saw a problem with continuing to sit on the case. But that didn't affect his existing order. So the case has been kind of quiet for the last, better part of the last year. It may come as no surprise that as we're approaching a new election cycle, that the candidates have suddenly discovered that their case still remains out there and decided to go out and ask the judge to impose not just a temporary injunction, but to make it permanent. And oh, by the way, we really think you need to put attorney's fees on these people so that they remember in the next election what's going to happen to them if they try those same shenanigans again. So that is what happened. We had a hearing back in October, and Judge Smith listened. As Catherine pointed out, he doesn't have the benefit of having the history of the case. Reading his orders, it is also somewhat difficult to believe that he actually even read all of the pleadings in the case. But nevertheless, he made his ruling, and that has imposed some fees and some consequences on the very, very brave patriots in Catoosa County. And I do want to say this. As far as these accountability rules go, and all of this has arisen as a result of Catoosa County's determination on a county level to say that they have a voice in their own local elections. This is not simply the power brokers down under the Gold Dome that get to do this, but having a county party means something. It means that you get to select the people that carry your banner. You get to choose whether or not, as the Republican Party, you're going to promote and allow individuals who may not have anything in common with the Republican values to come in and say, yes, we're Republicans. Vote for us because we're Republicans. Okay? And so there are a few counties, I'm also in one, Pickens, adopted an accountability rule, and a few others have done so. This has panicked the Republican establishment, absolutely panicked. There are people within the party that are 100% diametrically opposed to these. They think this is an alarming trend that needs to be arrested. And so I won't say they're happy to watch what's going on. I will say I haven't heard anyone say anything sympathetic to what's going on in the county. And these brave people, ladies, for a large part of it in Catoosa County, are carrying the battle for the entire state. And this is an amazing thing. And if I have no other chance, I want to say in what awe I hold these good members of the Catoosa County Republican Party. Thank God for you. So let me not take too much more time. I'll give you a brief update of where we are. After Judge Smith issued his order, which he confusingly combined two cases into one in which the party was the defendant and one in which the party was the plaintiff. I've never seen that done in 20-odd years of practicing law, but he's done it, and it's a very confusing case, so we've had to pick it apart and appeal the cases. The original case in which the candidates brought, we have filed a notice of appeal. That means that the record is now going to be assembled and sent up to the Georgia Supreme Court because it's an election-related matter. That's in process right now. On the other hand, the case where the Catoosa County electors challenged the qualifications of the candidates, that has to be gone up by way of what we call a discretionary appeal. Basically, we have to go to the Supreme Court and ask, Mother, may I file this? We have prepared that brief. It got filed this week, so we're all up to date. We're going to be anxiously waiting to see what comes in the 10 days that the other side has to reply. But that is where we are. And I did want to add one more thing. I respect Judge Smith. He was enormously interested in this case. He said it a number of times, how eager he was to hear this. And then he turned around and wrote what I can only characterize as a completely hostile opinion to the constitutional rights that are being asserted here. And beginning at its end, this is a constitutional right case. But they have gone out of their way to minimize the constitutional rights. And I've seen Georgia courts be hostile to federal constitutional claims before. That's no surprise. But it is as if the federal Constitution applies everywhere except in Catoosa County, Georgia. So we want to be sure about that. So they've made this a case all about statutory interpretation of Georgia law. And on that is probably their strongest argument, and that's where they're moving forward. And they're claiming that the party took an unreasonable interpretation of a particular section of the law allowing for procedural rules to be followed. Well, again, at the end of this is a constitutional case, and as long as they ignore that, we're going to continue to have problems, or opposition. We'll continue to have a fight on our hands, but we're going to win on this, okay? Whether it's in federal court, which I hope we continue to win, but even in Catoosa County, Georgia, that federal constitution protects every single one of us and guarantees that we have rights. And this party is going to win.
When you were talking about the Supreme Court, you're talking about the Georgia Supreme Court, correct?
Our appeal, yes, is lodged in the Georgia Supreme Court, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, hold the questions at the end. Ruth will speak, and then we'll go through some questions.
I'll be very brief. So, and excuse me because I feel like I'm going to get emotional. And it's not because I'm scared or anything, but I'm just so grateful. Grateful to our attorneys, grateful to our county and the people that have come together, because I'm originally from California. We moved here about 10 years ago, And I thought I was coming to a red county. I didn't have to fight anymore. I was so glad to leave California because I've been a Republican all my life. And I'm like, we can just relax. We can just enjoy our life, work hard, and be good amongst good conservatives. After 2020, after what happened, I'm like, okay, I've got to get off my butt and figure out what happened because I can't believe what happened in Georgia. And I believe the Lord really put our whole team together. Currently, I serve as the secretary. I was the treasurer at that point. And our executive committee, we were all women at that point, such strong women. And then our precinct chairs were just even more amazing. And so we couldn't have done it without the support of our whole county committee. We couldn't have done it without the GRA's support. We couldn't have done it without our attorneys. And we just want to thank you guys so much for that because we're just doing what we think is right in God's eyes with the freedom that He's given us in this country. And that's all we're trying to do. And for them to come at us this hard, well, we know then what we're doing is right because that's what the enemy's trying to do is they're just trying to break us down. And so we've got a lot of support from other counties as well. They're doing similar things, if not already changed some of the things in their counties to do the same thing. But we would just appreciate your prayers and continued support because it really means the world to us. Thank you.
And could we ask all of our friends from Catoosa who were involved in this to stand up so that everyone can give them a big hand?
Someone in the hallway. Well, thank you. So are there any questions for the group and the family? Yes, sir.
You mentioned earlier that there is it was mentioned earlier that a lot of judges end up being appointed by the governor rather than elected, and that the judge in one of your court cases was fining you, I believe, individually instead of fining the party. How did they legally justify piercing the party to the individuals? And what did the state and national Republican parties do, given that that would be an existential crisis for members of the Republican Party to be sued as individuals for simply participating in their voluntary positions within the party? And might you consider, or have you considered, suing the election officials who mislabeled the incumbents, mislabeled them Republicans? Might they be sued as conspiracy against rights? Sorry for that long question.
I think that was about 4 or 5 different questions. I will field the last one. That's what we did in the 1983 federal lawsuit. Is we sued the election board for mislabeling. So I can answer that one directly, personally, but my colleagues can answer the others.
The question about why are they being sued individually, and it simply has to do with the party structure. And we've heard so much over the last 2 years about people complaining about the party structure at the state level, but it's also important at the county level, and it's simply this. When you have an unincorporated association, then it is appropriate to sue the individual members of that association because they have no, in the case of a corporation, everybody knows you have that corporate shield that protects you from individual liability in a lot of cases. But that's not true of a free, unincorporated association. So that's really just the outgrowth of that.
Did that? Was there another part of the question that we may have missed? Was that
why the
national? The state and national party. You asked about the state and national party if they did anything. I think the answer to that is no. Yeah.
I can say at the state level, it's been an amazing silence. Okay, I won't say outright hostility, but that's what one feels.
And one just additional piece of information, in case any of you are talking about this within GOPs, which you should be, there is the fact that the state GOP essentially agreed with the theory that, and everything we're talking about, in that they voted, the executive committee voted to ban Jeff Duncan from running as a Republican. They voted to do that, and then he didn't run as a Republican, he ran as a Democrat. After that, so they essentially agreed. There's been talk about accountability rules not getting passed by the convention, but the accountability rule a number of years ago that I proposed would have just limited it so that the executive committee couldn't have done that. It would have had to have been the state convention. So the party has admitted that Catoosa County is right in that way. It's just that when it comes to Raffensperger, there's signals that they're saying, well, it's not the same, but they can't point out a legally differential. They're like, well, we gave a lot of reasons for Duncan. And it's like, well, if you're able to do it for one reason, you can do it for any other, as long as it's not racism.
So who's funding lawyer fees then? It's not the state or not the federal?
Pro bono, pro bono, pro bono. So that's what's going on. Yeah. And a lot of citizens have donated to cover expenses, because we are not paying like filing fees, appeal fees, all that. But Catoosa can use your help for all those type of fees, because it costs money to get court reporters and others to make transcripts. But that's what's going on. Yes, sir.
Apologies. What method, what procedure did the state actually follow in order to expel Duncan, or did they just vote to do it?
You were on. Well, David was on the executive committee when it happened. So David's. Yeah.
I would say it remains unclear. Every time you ask the question, you get pointed. You get pointed to the parliamentarian who's always able to come up with an explanation of why it's happened in the past and why it can be done again. And it is, yes, it is the executive committee that does it. And the current officers will tell you that they believe that it is appropriate and proper for that to occur. They just don't want to pass a rule that says it's okay to do.
Yeah, my understanding is they passed a resolution. Like, they just passed a resolution banning Duncan from the ballot, which I think is perfectly legal and constitutional. Any other questions for anyone? Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if I can word this right, but in Chathooga, our GOP chair, she just recently made a public announcement that they are no longer going to follow the accountability rule that we have put into place. But they haven't changed the rules for the courthouse. So what happens if, say, they are promoting a Democrat who is calling herself a Republican on the ballot? Can we, the people, sue them as individuals for forcing us to vote for a Democrat who is calling herself a Republican?
One of you want to handle that? Handle it?
I mean, I think. Well, I mean, I personally think the answer is you can't. I don't think the government can force a political party to believe or do really anything. Yeah. Well, exactly, and that's where we need to have people show up and replace them at the. Yeah, well, that's why people need to get involved in the GRA and locally and replace all the people like that. I mean, it's up to us, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with Alex. I think it's fair to say that the whole issue is a kind of muddled one. There is this distinction in Georgia law between what is actually statutory authority, legislative authority, and when it becomes a political decision that is left to the hands of the political party. Georgia, like a number of other states, has kind of blurred the distinction between the two by adopting some specific statutes that purport to talk about how the county parties are subject to the state party, and they've gone a little bit of a way into almost legislating how the parties conduct themselves, but not very far. And so anytime an issue like this comes up, the courts really struggle with how to deal with it and to know where that line is, where the court can no longer exercise authority, but it has to just be left to the individual political groups. So.
And if I can just add one thing, I'm also representing Senator Colton Moore in his efforts to get accountability for the individual who attacked him on video. And out of the out of the many defenses that counsel for this staffer for the speaker, who claims to be a counsel for the House Speaker, but is not in fact a Georgia barred lawyer. Just keep that in mind. He holds himself out as one, so he's also guilty of unauthorized practice of law. But his counsel has suggested that the question of whether a staffer can attack a senator is a political question. So that's the kind of argument that gets made. Which, to be fair, if it had been another legislator who had attacked Colton, they might have an argument for that. You know, they used to fight duels in the legislature. But certainly there is no argument that you can direct a staffer to conduct violence against a legislator on your behalf. But I just add that on the political question issue.
Other question? Owen. Yes, sir.
So part of this lawsuit had to do with the county election board. The Republican Party submitted questions that were supposed to appear on the ballot, and they refused to put those questions on there. That was never heard at this last hearing. Will that case, or that part of that case, be heard on this appeal?
Should I answer that? Yeah. So the ballot questions is actually part of the federal civil rights lawsuit, and the other side has essentially, if I'm recalling the hearing correctly, and Catherine and David may need to correct me if I'm not. If I recall the hearing correctly, that is moving forward. I think the ballot question issue, because that was a restriction on speech, and I don't even think that they're trying to get that dismissed anymore. I think the 11th Circuit said that. And for all of you who may have not followed this, so under state law, the party is allowed to, in a primary, add ballot questions to the Republican primary ballot. Not to the general election, the primary ballot. And the party added a number of questions asking about their knowledge of what was going on. Like, for example, did you know that these candidates were not endorsed, that were not supported by the party? Did you know that they were, just that they, would you support someone who's an anti-Trump Democrat? Things like that on the primary ballot. They just decided not to put them on the ballot, which would seem to violate state law and their rights to speech. But the 11th Circuit sided with us on that, and it doesn't seem like the district court is entertaining any. Well, it's still moving forward. It's not really being fought at right now. Like, the other side is not saying that the party doesn't have a right to have the questions theoretically. That's why the case is still pending. We will find out how that all works out with the district court. Yes. All right. So I believe we need to. I have a question for the organizer, like the people who did the logistics for this. Do we have a hard stop at 12:30 for lunch? Yeah. So it's hard stop at 12:30. All right. All right, so I guess with that, do we have any final questions for the panel? We also have one more panel that we can get in before lunch. It's about 15 minutes. We'll have Garland and Tamara Favorito for 15 minutes, and then I think we'll break for lunch. So are there any more questions for the legal panel? Yes, Tom.
Where do we go from here? I mean, do you feel comfortable that you're on solid ground? And I mean, at what point do we either say we have a W or we have an L?
Well, what we have now pending is 2 appeals before the Georgia Supreme Court. For whether it's good or bad, that's as far as we get to go in the state of Georgia. So one way or another, when the Georgia Supreme Court speaks on the pending appeals, we will know whether we have a win or a loss. Now, it is not clear until the court renders its decision, and it hasn't even been briefed yet, so we're a good ways away. Until the court speaks, we won't know what the remedy that it grants would be. Assuming that it rules for us, it could make its own decision, or it could simply say, Judge Smith, you didn't do it right, go and do it again. And that would basically set the case back almost to square one. So, and you know, this is law. This is I don't know any other way to describe it than that. And we're not going to know that for a while, so I don't have a good answer for you. It should not be years now that the case has been filed. It will be months. Could it be more than a year in the Supreme Court? Yes. That is possible, but not much more than that.
All right. Well, yes. Final question.
Earlier, if the county party has adopted a rule that kind of would be like a bylaw for a corporation, wouldn't you be able to go to court and ask for an injunction that the election officials not do a thing if your party effectively ignores its own bylaws?
Again, that sort of, and I have spent too much time looking at the boundaries of where the political questions are. I feel pretty confident in saying that I do not believe a court would entertain that. What I do believe the court would entertain is exactly the situation similar to what happened here, where the candidate got approved, arguably by an improper method, and then someone came and filed a qualification challenge. And that's where the fight would be then.
All right. Well, thank you all on the panel. Oh, very good, good point. And I was reminded that a couple of our lawyers here, Catherine and David, also have been involved in the case that recently was dismissed regarding President Trump and others in Fulton County. So, yeah. Yeah. All right, so that is a very important fight. We need to keep up the legal fight because obviously the Democrats and the rhinos are going to keep using the legal system. Next up, Garland and Tamara Favorito presenting on election integrity reform and what's going on there. Come on up, Garland.
Just a tad. All right, thank you, all. Is the mic working okay? We switched gears a little bit, and I thought it was very important to touch on why is it important to stand for principle. Because we want to thank y'all because the GRA stands for principle. This is what it's all about, and quite frankly, there's not enough people who are standing for principle. So I wanted to use 5 quick examples on using Brad Raffensperger as why we need to stand for principle. Okay, there you go. Thank you, Jenny. And then Tamara's going to come up and give us a little bit of good news. So this is going to get really nasty and evil. I'm going to try to do this as best I can. We are in a church, but if you're going to see how evil this stuff is, and so if anybody wants to step out of the room for 5 or 10 minutes, I totally understand. Brad Raffensperger, when he first elected, and this is why it's so important that you have this rule. When he was first elected, he retained David Becker and Eric in 2019. And Becker was a DOJ attorney from 1998 to 2005. He led the he was the lead opposing attorney in Georgia v. Ashcroft, arguing against Georgia before Georgia won in the United States Supreme Court. He was subject to an ethics complaint in while he was at DOJ for offering the city of Boston help to defeat a DOJ lawsuit against him while he was working in the DOJ. Now, this is all public knowledge before Brad Ravensburger retained him. And everything I'm showing you, Brad Ravensburger had foreknowledge before he selected these people to run elections in the state of Georgia. The investigations reveal that he had extreme bias against Republicans back then, and since that time he was funded by George Soros through the Foundation to Promote Open Society. Y'all know about that. And Becker was also at Pew Charitable Trust, which was funded by George Soros. Brad Ravensburger had all this information before he retained David Becker, and also got ERIC in 2019. ERIC, as many of you know, it's a third-party program that is collecting our PII, our personal identifying information, and they're outsourcing it to third parties like Sears, Center for Elections Innovation Research, which was funded by none other than Mark Zuckerberg. And we'll come back to that in just a second. Brad Ravensburger also retained Salesforce and Mark Benioff to outsource our voter registration data into a cloud, which he cannot control. And this, before he got this contract, he also, and Mark Benioff, the CEO of Salesforce, had come out against Senate Bill 202 in social media. Now, understand Salesforce and Mark Benioff are California companies. They got no business of what's going on here in Georgia in terms of election integrity. But they issued these posts prior to Brad Ravensburger actually retaining them. And they said that SB 202 unnecessarily limits provisional balloting, limits trustworthy, safe, and equal access to voting. All of that was a lie. And yet, Brad Ravensburger decides to retain Salesforce and Mark Benioff despite the lies that they were telling about the state of Georgia. Strike number 2. He also allowed Georgia to take $45 million in Zuckerbucks that flowed in from Mark Zuckerberg's organization. You might remember Mark Zuckerberg spent $330 million to establish the CTCL, Center for Technology and Civic Life, which employed David Plouffe who was the former Obama campaign manager. David Plouffe wrote the book, A Citizen's Guide to Beating Donald Trump. And so, knowing this, he still decides to allow $45 million of Zuckerbucks to come in for the 2020 election, and these were spent mostly on partisan get-out-the-vote efforts. 94% of the money went to counties won by Joe Biden. Installation of unsecured drop boxes. We finally banned the outdoor drop boxes, got them taken care of. And then they also offered technical resources to gain control of the electronic voting systems, and that's what they did in Fulton County. It was a group called Elections Group, which was funded by CTCL, had control of the voting systems in Fulton County. We know that from emails from Richard Barron, the director, to Ryan Macias of the Elections Group. He also hired Voting Works, and this is where it gets ugly. I'm going to try to not, we are in a church, so I'm trying to let you understand this is a spiritual war. This way, so he hired Voting Works. Voting Works is headed by the executive director Ben Adida. Ben Adida has all kinds of nasty social posts before he hired them, before Brad Ravensburger hired him. He's talking about the GOP is rotten. The whole party is rotten to its core. Donald Trump is the ultimate xenophobe. F Donald Trump and all his enablers. That is what Brad Ravensburger thought is a kind of a guy who should be running Georgia elections, specifically the audit. He also hired Dominion Voting Systems. Dominion Voting Systems, the director of strategy and security was Eric Coomer, who holds the adjudication patents. You know, the adjudication is when somebody can decide voter intent and change the ballot. Coomer admitted to social posts of what is referred to as the Antifa Manifesto. He actually posted the Antifa Manifesto and cop killer videos. And he's admitted to this in an article, so we can say this now. This is the kind of mentality. This is the director of strategy and security for Dominion. Unbelievable stuff. But he's Coomer also, who is, by the way, an admitted addict, who he says he got a call in 2005. They wanted him to become the security director of, I think it was at that time, Sequoia Voting Systems. Well, how on earth, why would they do that? You know, he had no background at that time to do that. And he has he had a drug addiction and a ugly divorce, lots of other things that he's acknowledged and happened at that time. But Coomer also had rabid anti-Trump, vile social media statements. This was all before Brad Ravensburger signed the contract with Dominion. And he admitted in August 20 that these posts were his. I'm going to read you one of his posts real quickly. He says, this is in 2016, this is 3 years before Brad Ravensburger decided to go with Dominion. He says, if you are planning to vote for that, and he's talking about Donald Trump, autocratic, narcissist, fascist, A-hat, blowhard, and his Christian jihadist VP pick, unfriend me now. No, I'm not joking. I'm all for reasoned political discourse and healthy debate, blah, blah, blah. And he goes on to say only an absolute F idiot could ever vote for that windbag F tart. Fascist, racist, F, no BS. I don't give a D if you are friends, family, ransom, acquaintance, pull the lever, mark an oval, touch a screen for that carnival barker. Unfriend me now. I have no desire to ever interact with you. You are beyond hope, beyond reason. You are controlled by fear, reaction, and BS. Get it together. Get your ass together. So this is the kind, he says, if that doesn't persuade you, F you. Seriously, and he goes on and on. It's just incredibly nasty stuff. This is the director of strategic security and systems for Dominion Voting System. This is one of the top guys who holds the patents. And these are the kinds of people that Brad Ravensburger relied on to run our elections. It's not just that they were anti-Republican, but this is evil and satanic. And I bring this to your attention because we are in a spiritual war. This is a spiritual war, and Brad Josh is going to have, McCoon is going to have a decision to make. Is he going to stand with good or is he going to stand with evil? Furthermore, according to Joe Dalman's affidavit, he was heard on an Antifa call. Trump is not going to win. I made effing sure of that. He told us, according to Joe Altman's affidavit, on a call. So, again, this is a spiritual war, and I wanted to make that point. I want to thank you for standing up, doing this resolution that is really, really important. Don't back down. This is the evidence, and this is just a part of it. He sold out not only the Republican Party, he sold out the voters in Georgia, and he sold out God, quite frankly. And with that said, I want to give you a few good news. That was the bad news. You had to hear it. And so Tamara is going to come up just for a minute to give you a few good points of what's going on in Georgia real quickly, and then we'll wrap this up.
mic is on. Okay. Yeah. So I think you now have no doubt that the resolution that was passed was righteous. So, but we do feel like this year the momentum has shifted in our favor. You may have seen President Trump posted about Dominion Smartmatic Venezuela Cartel de la Sol's connection. We think this is the signal that we've been waiting for. If you haven't seen that post, you can go and search for Laura Logan's interview of Gary Bernstein and Ralph Pizzullo, or also get the book Stolen Elections by Ralph Pizzullo. It is very telling. Also, we saw that President Trump has posted that he will lead an election integrity initiative with more executive orders. So we are ready for those executive orders, and we believe that that should be coming down really soon. And then, as was already mentioned, the Fani Willis criminal case against the president and 18 of her political adversaries was completely dismissed. Praise God. So just three things that VoterGA did this year. First, and this was very recently, VoterGA and DeKalb GOP filed a petition with the U.S. Election Assistance Commission to vacate the Dominion Democracy Suite 5.5A certification. That is the version we use, and it is because of evidence that came forward in the DeKalb GOP versus Raffensperger case last year that it never should have been certified in the first place. It does not even meet 2005 guidelines for voting systems. And those 2005 guidelines are based on 1984, 1985, and 1994 requirements. Imagine that.
And that was expert witness testimony, unrefuted expert witness testimony. This is not anybody's opinion.
Yes. So we'll see where that goes. If they were not to do this, we will take it into federal court. So be watching for that. The other thing, we really did engage with the civil and the criminal divisions of the DOJ to get them to intervene in the Fulton County counterfeit ballot case, which is now 5 years old. You might recall that on July 30th or 31st, the State Election Board passed a resolution asking the DOJ for help. The next day, VoterGA sent them a 25-point document with all the evidence of what went on in Fulton County. And then August 25th was the first time that the criminal division, Ed Martin, sent a letter to Judge McBurney. And then, of course, we're all aware that the civil division then sent a letter to Fulton County. So we're expecting to hear more from that. And then also we have just published VoterGA's recommendations to the House Election Study Committee. As you know, they had their 6 meetings over the summer, and they have now reported to, I assume, to Burns. They said they had to report on December 1st. We sent them recommendations of what we think needs to be done for election bills this next year.
And that is on our VoterGA.org studies tab. You can go see our recommendations now.
Yeah, and we'll go through some of these quickly, and you'll see as Nathaniel talked about the Georgia Freedom Caucus, their election integrity bills that they're going to get proposed are really complementary to ours. So it could be a very strong session.
Thanks. So just real quickly, we're going to give you our top 10 and let us know if you think these are good. First of all, we like Coltonmore's Senate Bill 303 for hand-marked paper ballots with publicly recorded hand counts. We like Martin Montahan's bill, House Bill 2415, to remove ERIC to protect our PII from being outsourced to partisan third parties. We want to bring all the voter roll data back in-house from that unsecure Salesforce cloud that has got it right now. We want to establish an election court for all election cases and challenges so election cases don't have to go through Fulton County judicial system. We want a fully independent and funded state election board. We want fraud prevention techniques such as ballot IDs, public eligible voter lists, and numbered lists of voters. That was for you, Jason and Lucia. Voter roll data cleanup, DDS opt-in, registered. We want penalties if counties refuse to clean their voter rolls. We want no excuse, free public access to all ballots and election records. Now, here's an interesting one. You heard Donald Trump say that he wants to remove mail-in voting. So we want to replace this fraud-prone mail-in voting with a designated ballot deliverer. So instead of putting your ballot in the mail, you just assign a deliverer who then gives an ID when they take the ballot to the election office or polling location. So every ballot comes in, you know it had an ID, but it's not trackable to a voter. It's just an ID on the envelope. And then finally, all ballots have to be received by Election Day for compliance and fraud prevention. We're not going to take ballots. Okay. That sure did feel a lot better than me doing the other stuff. Okay.
So just 1 minute on VoterGA. We are a 501c3. All donations are tax deductible. And we have apparel you can see in the back or online at voterga.org, the donate page, because we want to support President Trump's election executive orders, so we would appreciate your wearing the message. And they're really gifts for thanking you for donating for the things that we do. We have 5 active lawsuits. That's really where most of our funds go to. Litigation is very expensive, as you're aware. We want to be able to continue doing education so that voters, legislators, poll watchers know what the issues are. And we also give free expert witness testimony. That would be Garland. He testifies in cases like John Eastman's bar trial, Jeffrey Clark, because lawfare is not going away. So you can come visit us at the table in the back. And since we are running a little behind on schedule, we'll take questions back there during lunch. How about that? All right. Thank you.
Dallas County, Texas just went to paper ballots. If they can do it, we can do it. Dallas County, Texas is very interesting because they hired Hyder Garcia, who was one of the Venezuelan guys who was involved in the rigging of the elections in the Philippines. They found out that the voting systems were adding voters mysteriously, and then they suddenly went from a red county to a blue county overnight. And now they have realized that they did something wrong, and now they have gone to paper ballots. So thank you for mentioning that. We can do it too.
I guess we'll start off with just some quick introductions from each of you for about 5 minutes, and then I'll move into some questions. So go ahead, 5 minutes per introduction. Whoever would like to go first.
I'm Rhonda Thomas. Thank you for having me today. I'm president of Truth in Education. We are in Georgia, but we are national. We speak nationally. We work on legislation. We collaborate with other groups around the country on different bills and also what's happening within our schools. And through that, we just made a great connection across the country in different states. We also collaborate with Alliance Defending Freedom we're part of their Parental Rights Coalition. We work with other groups just like that. It's very exciting to see what is happening around the country. And we're excited today to be here to talk about why it's important to work on legislation. We feel that our country was founded on Christianity. God calls us to do His work. And we are not in control of the outcome, but we need to be a part of the process. And I can give you an example of that.
There's actually a movement. This is why this is important. We're teaching our children that they have many identities, but none of them are their identity in Christ. So we have something that is now been piloted at the University of Utah called the Dignity Project. They're actually rating people's tone. This was actually a political campaign that they were piloting this on. Between 1 and 8, between 1 and 3, you're contemptuous and you pretty much don't deserve to be here. So this is going to be censorship. This was created by a gentleman that is the CEO and co-founder of Social Emotional Learning, which is the CASEL platform. And it's going to layer right inside that platform, and it's going to be a part of our school. Our children, you won't see it because of the way it's woven in, but our children are going to be rated and censored based on their belief systems, what they say, and how they say it. So this is going to change our political process. It's going to affect our elections because this is a way of separating and dividing and really, this is a big word, but culling our population, and not only just through our schools and our children, but through our election process, our founding, everything that we're a part of, everything we believe in is being attacked, and we know that. So what's important to us is what's happening everywhere, but especially to our children. And so that is why I believe we should be involved in the process. It's part of a privilege we have of being a part of this country. We cannot not participate. And not only may we not be the ones that some people aren't, to be at the Capitol and to do other things, but there's other things they can do, and we're going to talk about that today, I believe. So we ask that you support Truth in Education. We're working with churches. We worked with First Baptist Atlanta. Dr. George has partnered with us to bring in a Christian school methodology. They adopted a school, or were actually given a school. So I've met with him and taken him to Virginia, introduced him to something called the principal approach, which is how our founders learned. It's all books. They only use the 1828 dictionary, and everything is taught the way our founders were taught. So we need to get churches to open their doors to welcome home education. We need to call it home education because the public schools have co-opted homeschooling. So we need to go back to, homeschooling is really training anyway, not that we really do that, but home education is truly teaching knowledge. So we need to reframe that. And so those are the things we do. We work on legislation, we work with churches, we speak nationally, and we educate and collaborate with national organizations. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, my name is Jason Frazier. And wow, I wasn't aware of everything you were talking about. I focus most of my energy on election integrity specifically. But as you alluded to, I mean, there are so many different avenues to help, to get involved. I have a strong data background, so I'm very good at looking at voter rolls and finding issues. Other folks are great at making public comment. Other folks may live closer to the Capitol or have more free time. So it really doesn't matter how you get involved as long as folks are involved. That's the key. Find your passion. If it's children, if it's schools, if it's election integrity, whatever your passion is, just find that, get involved, tell your neighbors, tell your friends, spread the word, and obviously join the GRA, right? And just try to grow the folks. So a little bit more about my background. I wasn't nearly as involved in politics until after 2020, like a lot of folks. I knew about politics, followed politics, just didn't know how I could contribute, that I actually could make a difference. I just assumed that things just happened. But after 2020, I found a way to make a difference. And then the niche that I stumbled into was the voter rolls. A friend of mine gave me a copy of the voter rolls and said, hey, you're an engineer, see what you can find. And that was one of those life-changing events that I didn't see coming. Because I quickly stumbled upon thousands of people registered at business addresses in Fulton. I found 10,000 people that were registered more than once just in Fulton County. I've expanded that to where I run the entire state every month, and there's still thousands. Not as many, but there are still thousands. If you're registered twice, you can vote twice. Not legally, but people do it. And along those same lines, I will put a plug in for the State Board of Elections is meeting on Tuesday. In my humble opinion, that board has not been what we would want it to be, but it is greatly improving over time, and this will be one of the first meetings where they're going over a large backlog of the cases. It gives me a lot of positive energy, thinking, hey, they're making a big change now. They're actually looking at one of my cases I submitted about 3 years ago on people that were double registered and were given credit for voting twice. So I know we all heard that never happened in 2020. Well, I have a case that has individuals that possibly voted more than once, and it is recommended to be reviewed on that agenda. So that'll be one of the first cases that we've seen actually be reviewed. So we'll see what the board recommends and what the evidence shows. But either way, the State Board of Elections is a great avenue to learn what's going on, to talk to the folks that are down there. I mean, they need help. It's difficult when you have you have teams of paid individuals from the other side that are there every single meeting, and all of us, we drive down there. A lot of folks take a day off of work. You're paying for parking. It's all on us. But having folks like us in the audience really gives folks like Dr. Johnston and Janelle King, it gives them support that they're not just on an island by themselves. Same can be said for Board of Elections across the state and Board of Commissioners. Having folks down there really, really makes a big difference. Make your public comment, just support them so it doesn't feel like they're the election denier crazy person up there, because they're just talking facts. The voter roll, here's the same guy registered twice. That's a fact. It's not an election denying to say they've voted more than once if their data shows they voted more than once. So stick to the facts and support these folks, and it really, really does make a difference. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm going, and I'll give you some more information soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Well, I think it's, hello, does this work? I think it's rare when you're on a panel and you can one-up the person next to you. Well, Jason didn't participate until 2021. Well, I can beat that. I registered as a Democrat in 1968, and then I spent the next 50 years ignoring everything. I didn't pay attention at all. I rarely voted. I thought this country was on autopilot, and it didn't need me, and I was busy. So then, like Rip Van Winkle, I woke up in 2017, and I started paying attention and found that things had really changed. And I was horrified at what the Democrats had become. and I walked away, but I also didn't sleep for the next 4 years. So I came to a crossroads where I had to do something, and the choice was intensive psychotherapy or take some kind of action. So in 2021, I guess along with Jason, I joined a Republican club. Then I was on the board of the Southeast Georgia Republican Assembly. And then in 2023, I got elected as second vice chair of the Chatham County GOP, and that's Savannah Metro, and we're the 5th largest county in the state. So you could say I've got 4.5 years of political experience, and I didn't know anything. You knew stuff before, you just weren't doing it. I didn't even know. I didn't know what had happened. So I have 4.5 years of political experience, during which I worked like a dog. And so my total experience in dog years is 31.5. I thought I should establish that as my credibility. Well, hello. Okay, I'm not a lobbyist like these two guys. I'm not a subject matter expert. So why am I here on a panel to talk about lobbying? Well, mainly because Abigail asked me. But I am doing something that I think could help increase the conservative outcomes in both the legislature and in the elections. And that is, when I ran for the second vice chair, I said I was going to establish a conservative community where Republicans were informed and politicians were held accountable. Now, I came to the realization that this was so desperately needed because I worked for a poll, and I poll watched and stuff, and I saw people go into the primaries and say, I saw one guy who spoiled his ballot, and he says, I don't know who in the hell any of these people are, and walk out. And then at another polling place, I saw a neighbor of mine tell the person next to her, I just voted blind. And I thought, this is not a good thing. Then I went to a Republican club, and the speakers were our representatives to Atlanta, and they were telling the audience how great they were doing in Atlanta, and they cited this bill and that bill, and everybody was clapping and thinking it's wonderful. I looked around and I thought, none of these people have any independent source of how these representatives are doing. So I started developing a conservative community by establishing a countywide email list of only Republicans, where I would email them just with political information. I mean, it's not like the GOP newsletter that might tell you when the next pig roast is, or, it was specifically grassroots action. Elections, information on candidates, and so forth. And so I think that can help in two ways, this list, particularly if it were done all across Georgia in different counties. The email list can help by distributing the scorecards of these representatives, and that's what I do before the primaries. The GRA has a scorecard, and the Freedom Caucus has a scorecard. And as a Republican Party, we can't endorse one Republican over another, but we can share links. So I share links to these scorecards, and then for better or worse, that's just information. Now, with new candidates, you want to know what they think, what they stand for, what their qualifications are, and I link to their Facebook and to their website for that. But for incumbents, you don't care what they say, you don't care what they think, you don't care what they stand for. The only thing you care about for incumbents is how did they vote in Atlanta. And the scorecards will tell you the unvarnished truth. And I have to say, am I going too long? Oh, okay. Okay. Well, with the scorecards, tell you it's not a pretty story. Our assembly in Atlanta has Republican majorities and super majorities over the year, we could pass any Republican legislature that we wanted to, any bills that we wanted to. But you'd think we'd be at the top of the nation in doing this. No, we're 26. We're in the bottom half of the class. That's an F. That's all I'll say.
Great job. So I have a few questions, and then we'll turn to some audience questions. But first, and just try to keep the answer about a minute, 2 minutes each, and if it's already been covered, just that's fine. So first, what are some tips you would give people? Because the point of this is trying to get more people to have an impact and let people know that are seeing this video how to have an impact. How would you say what are some tips for going to the Capitol and talking to legislators and trying to have an impact?
Yeah, I'll start with this one. So last year, well, I guess a few years ago, probably 2021 was the first time I went to the Capitol. And my wife, Lucia, and I typically go down there as a team. And what I would say, and one of the mistakes that I see a lot of folks make, and again, depending on your background, you're going to be very passionate about one subject. You've got to realize these legislators, they've got to know everything from the pothole in the street to the dog catcher to everything. They may not be as passionate or even have read the bills that you guys have read. And that's another thing I would recommend you read the bill, thoroughly read it through, and mark it up and say, hey, I've got some changes to this bill, so that way you're making their lives very easy. They've got a lot of bills. So just get to know them. Don't attack them. You know, find the inroads of where you and them and that individual agree. Focus on that and try to use that as a way to get to know them, build rapport, and absolutely get to know your legislators and work with them directly. So that's where I would say to start out with. Anyone else?
The next thing I would do is to know the difference between being a lobbyist and an advocate, because there are laws and guidelines and penalties if you say you're a lobbyist at the Capitol and you're really not. I am not a lobbyist. I'm there to advocate and to educate because I'm a 501c3, so I can't do that. So I think that's very important how we present ourselves. The other thing is, as Jason was saying, I would recommend if you have not been to the Capitol, or even if you've only been a few times, I would recommend going on the website and taking an hour or two and really going through that website so that you understand what all the information that's available to you, because it's a lot. You can find the study committees from the summer. You can listen to the videos. They're usually always recorded and there for you to pull up. You can find out who's on the committees, the education committee, whatever the committee is. And that's a great place to start. If you have not been, I would recommend you just go and just sit in one of the committee meetings. Just make your way around the Capitol so that you can really become more comfortable with it. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to know exactly how it works right away, but you're going to figure that out as you go. And I think that was big for me, is the more you're down there and the more you research, then that's very important. So I just want to encourage you to take that first step, which is usually the hardest step, is to go down there, but to find someone to go with you. And if you've already been down there, then it's our time to invite people to go with us and to be a mentor to them, to teach them what to do when they're at the Capitol.
Well, I'm a long distance person. If you're a long distance person, then the email list can help a lot. I think if we have relationships not only with our representatives, but with Rhonda and Jason and other people that lead advocacy groups, because the email list can be used to mount call-in and write-in campaigns supporting the bills that they tell us that they're targeting. So I'm not a subject matter expert. I don't track legislation, but if I get in contact with Rhonda and she tells me this is really important and we need to call in on this, I have the people to do it. And if we had that all across Georgia, it would be huge.
So question for you, because I was about to move into that, is I was going to ask, how can voters impact things if they can't make it to the Capitol? I'm guessing one way would be through email list and getting the word out. But talk a little bit more about that. Like, what do you think the value is of an email list? How would you see us growing one? Do you think there are other ways to have an impact if you can't make it to the Capitol, or do you think that's the main way?
Emails is just one thing that we do. We have a Facebook page that got 300,000 views in the last 90 days, and we do door knocking and so forth. But the email list is something that you can do at the last minute. You can do it and say, we need to call in today. This hearing is coming up, and people, I'm surprised that the people who haven't done anything will do this. So I think it can make a big impact. And you can use it and once you have this email list, you can use it for anything. We spoke at the Board of Elections against the Dominion machine, and it was after Garland came out and said, this is the best day ever at the SEB. And they passed all these rules that are going to make our elections safer. And I put that out to my email list. And then the next thing was, oops, the Democrats are suing. They're trying to get this person off the SEB. They're doing all these horrible things. And I put out another email that said, we got to call our representatives, say they better support this SEB and go against this. And I had tons of people do that. They were so upset because I'd just gone out with this happy email with Garland's. I used Garland's slide and everything, and then all this bad news. So you can use it for that. I use it to get people at the Board of Elections. You may remember the one where Beth Mazzaroni was carried out by her feet. I sent one email out and 60 people attended. So it's a great way to get participation. I have I'm building a relationship with these people. I put my phone number on every email I send out. It's from my personal email. I don't use MailChimp or anything. It's from me, and they can send back an email to me, or they can call me. So it's a relationship I'm building with a whole bunch of people. So I think it's very helpful. There's a myth that nobody will give you their email address. That's not true. I have found in door knocking in very conservative neighborhoods, 98% gave me their email. It does matter how you ask for it. I say, I'm building a conservative network for Republicans only across Chatham County. Give me your email, and I'll put you on it. And I've got my pen, and I'm about to write. And they give it to me 98% of the time. So it doesn't mean you won't be rejected, but who cares? If they say no, then you just move on. But getting those email addresses is very important. It's a way to establish a relationship with a whole bunch of good Republicans.
That's very useful. Anyone else?
The other thing is that we need to remember our legislators are open to doing Zoom and team calls. If you plan to do that, we've done it with a few. Just send your information a day or two ahead of time so they can be prepared on what you're going to talk about and what you're going to cover. And they schedule phone calls, and they'll meet you outside of the Capitol too during the summer. So it's good to remember that they are just like us, and we should approach it that way. They're not always easy to get with, and of course it's going to depend on the legislator, right? But we should act as if we have access to them, because we should, and we do. So we need to make those phone calls and try to set up those meetings, and we just did that recently with one, but it took us being persistent, but always professional, always kind, and finally got a response, and we're having a meeting with them. So don't give up. I think that's very important too. I think that's it.
Yeah, to add to that, again, yes, absolutely, always be professional. These folks don't have to work with you, so make them want to work with you. And another thing, again, me being fairly new to this, I'm kind of where a lot of people might be right now, is I would have thought 5 years ago, what's the point sending them an email? I'm sure they get a lot of emails. Who cares? It actually makes a big difference. I know there was a campaign a few years ago for the State Board of Elections, the Ed Lindsay's Gotta Go campaign, and that made a big difference, essentially tying somebody to who appointed them, what the issues are, putting it all on record, and Ed Lindsay got the boot, and he left and was replaced with Janelle King, I believe, is who replaced him. And she is. So that absolutely makes a difference. I mean, that alone showed that it makes a difference. So sending those emails, putting it on Twitter, putting it on Facebook, educating everyone of the pros and cons with everything you're doing. And as far as meeting some of the legislators, there are different events, like in Roswell, we've got events occasionally where we'll have legislators at, say, a GOP event. It's a smaller event. Get to know them, shake their hand, get to know more about them, so that way you can start building that relationship.
So follow up to that. Do you think that the politicians have a reason to listen to you all over, the donors and paid lobbyists that are down there, as opposed to advocates, as Rhonda mentioned? Like, why do they listen, or would they listen, and how should that be sort of focused on and leveraged so that they listen to one person rather than another? Like, how does that work?
Well, I mean, a lot of the legislators, yes, they do have donors, they do have lobbyists that they follow, but also every email, every phone call is kind of a barometer of what their voting base thinks. So especially if you're emailing your legislator, you're calling your legislator, they know you're the squeaky wheel, or you wouldn't be doing that. Every squeaky wheel has a network. You've got an email list of how many strong. My wife, she emails people on a regular basis because she door knocks a ton. So again, same story. You've got your email list. When she sends an email, they know she's a squeaky wheel. When I send an email, they know I'm a squeaky wheel. I represent a lot of people in their district. So keeping us appeased goes a long way in them getting reelected.
I would say the same thing, and there's the two ways that this email list helps doing that. I think the more widely we can distribute the scorecards, the legislative scorecards, the more they'll worry about what their grade is. And secondly, if we can mount call-in campaigns across the state, so you're pressuring your representatives at the same time I'm pressuring my representatives on Rhonda's bill, then the more they're going to hear that squeaky wheel.
I think we're different too. They have the money, right? But we do vote for them. We have the real life stories that have to do with this bill. We have a lot to offer. We make an impact. So I think the lobbyists are obviously very powerful at the Capitol. We've seen that. But if we go in and we're consistent, and as Jason said, we need to go in with facts. We need to know, need to have it in our hands. We need to have analyzed that bill. We need to compare it to all the codes that are in that bill. We need to do everything that we're ready to be able to share with that legislator why our outcome, it looks different than what that lobbyist wants it to be. So our vote carries weight. And usually from a marketing standpoint, if they receive a call from someone, that represents thousands of people who are thinking the same thing, but they're not calling. And we need to remember that. It is very, very important that we make those calls and we reach out. And face-to-face is very important. It's relationship, as both of you all have been saying. We need to build those relationships, and that takes time and it takes going down there.
So thank you for that. So for one of the things that I have referred in the past oftentimes to the political industry, referring to like the paid people who make money off politics and are, they're sort of mercenaries. How much of that do you see at the Capitol, and how do you think that people can discern who to listen to the most? Like for our activists, how can they know, like, well, this person actually is, bought and paid for, but this one's actually trying to spread good information? Like, how much of that do you see, and how would you help discern between those groups?
I'll start with that one. So me going down to the Capitol, whether it's the Capitol or the State Board of Elections, if I can tell who's being paid very quickly, I'm sure they can too. So clearly I'm not being paid for any of this. I don't have sponsors. I'm going down there. People know who I am. If you're down there enough, they will know who you are. And you just introduce yourself. Hey, I'm XYZ from here. I voted for you. And then tell them you have an email list. What do you think about this? And, get them on the record. They'll know you're going to be emailing that out to your group. Or I've got, I want to make sure you get in next year, but my friends have this concern. So that adds a lot more credibility to where you are, and will help them know why they should listen to you and maybe not the lobbyist. Or, a lot of these things, the lobbyist is lobbying for this. They don't even have a lobbyist looking at what you're concerned with. So I wouldn't be so concerned about a lot of these issues. So it just depends on what you're targeting.
Do you all remember when 520, we were battling that at the Capitol? There was a gentleman there, a pharmaceutical gentleman, that you could tell stood out. In fact, Barbara, that works with me, used to be on the left, and she used to work with behavioral health and SHMSA and all of those, and she recognized him. So to bring him in meant that bill was very important to them. So I think, as Jason said, that we need to just pay attention to who's in the room. But not only that, we can look into who is supporting our legislators, and depending on where their money is coming from, most likely that's going to be the bills that are being pushed. And an example of that would be Sharon Cooper pushing this euthanasia bill that's coming up. So when those bills come up, and even before then, I think we need to understand where their money is coming from. I actually printed out a 12-page sheet for you guys, and I forgot to bring it with me, but I'll send it to Abigail. But I don't have all of them. I'm sure Jason and others have some, but I have a list of where you can go to and start researching where their money is coming from. And really, if we understand that, it gives us an opportunity to approach them in a little different way that might be more beneficial to us.
And one thing that I think might just be useful, since you all are involved in being down at the Capitol, and this wasn't on the list, but I think you all can speak to this. What do you notice about the involvement of the Republican Party at the Capitol, if any? Like, what are they doing regarding the platform, if anything?
I'll be honest, I don't see them there as much as I would like. We'll put it that way. In certain avenues, I'm sure they're more involved. I am on the Election Confidence Task Force, and I've been on that for a few years, and that's a GOP function. There's definitely pros and cons with that group. When I first started, I'll be honest, I read one of the bills, and just because I've spent way too many hours in election integrity, I saw a lot of major gaps that maybe if you're looking at it from an honest perspective, you would see it this way. If you look at it from, I work with Fulton County, I see it this way, and I see how they're going to manipulate and just drive a truck right through a little gap. I made a lot of recommendations, and to my absolute shock and surprise, it made it into the next draft of that bill. So, if you are rational and you step up, don't look to your left and look to your right and say, well, somebody will do this. Sometimes you've got to be the one that does this, and you can't expect somebody else to. And let's be honest, we're all very busy people. They're busy too. If you have rational, justified changes to a bill, there's a decent chance it'll get in there. So I would be less on, does somebody else go there and do this, than, well, if I don't see anybody doing it, I need to do it. And that's part of why I do a lot of what I'm doing.
I'm learning as I go too, but I have learned that we need to, over the summer, not wait until the session. It's very important that between sessions we're involved. And I've seen a difference with that in being able to present bills and look for sponsors, but also to be involved in that and have a say. And I think that's very important. I would say there is a lot of control at the Capitol. We have the Speaker of the House, right? There's a lot of different dynamics down there, and working around that, even I would say for the legislators, sometimes is kind of tough. What my disappointment is that most of the bills that do pass are not strong bills, and they have no teeth in them. So yet I know we passed the bill that was for hormones and puberty blockers, but there's no teeth in the bill. The doctor is not held responsible. But the unfortunate thing is that parents believe it's taken care of, and that should never happen. And that is the word then that we have to get out, but we can't get it out like our national media does. So as we present bills, and we know they're not strong bills, I wish they would not be presented in a way and a manner that parents think this situation is taken care of and that they can relax.
All right. Well, thank you. So, well, I guess we're about to turn to audience questions, but just 1 minute each, if you can. If someone listening right now has an issue that they want to see something happen with, or they want to help with one of your efforts, what can they do? What should they do?
Just give me your email address, and I'll put you on my list.
Nice.
But I will send you, if you want, a little outline of how to go about starting this list and the different things I've tried in the different sources. I'd be glad to do that if anybody is interested in creating one.
Yeah, I don't think I can top that answer. Yeah, so just getting involved. If you want to learn about election integrity, you can follow my X account. Or just, listen to a state board of elections. It's online, or your county, or if you want to hear a really bad county, listen to Fulton Counties. It's online. You can, you will get very frustrated, but it is good to know what are the facts and what are the AJC facts. So it's good to know the difference. And if you're listening to it firsthand, you will know the difference. And sometimes just hearing these firsthand is a great way to get yourself involved, because some of the things they do in these meetings are just absolutely unbelievable, that this is what they're actually doing in these meetings. It's truly despicable sometimes. And other times it's fantastic. You learn your board of commissioner is just an amazing person, and it'll get you off the couch and door knocking for them next time they run. So just getting involved anywhere is helpful.
And get involved with no expectations. It's like anything we do. If you have set expectations, you're going to quit. We don't want you to quit. So it's very important that whatever you decide or you feel like God's calling you to get involved with, that you get involved knowing you're not in control of that outcome, but you are creating and working that journey alongside God, and that's what He's calling us to do. And so I just have seen people get involved and expect things, and then they quit. We can't do that. We have to keep going. If you want to work with us, we would love it. You can also follow us on our Substack, Truth in Education. That's where our newsletters come out. You can follow us on social media. And we would love to have you. You can email me. In fact, my card's out there as you exit. We need researchers, and we need people to monitor more legislation and a few other things that we need to have done. So there's a bill at the Capitol, the Hindu phobia bill, and we are looking for a team that will help us send this to all the churches in your county, so to make them aware of what's out there. And we're obviously not against any religion, but we're against a religion or a belief becoming a protected class, because then if you start that precedent, what will be next? We all are already taken care of.
All right. Well, thank you. So with that, are there any questions from the... yes, Tom.
Following up on Rhonda's comment earlier about how one phone call, one email represents an X factor. In the day, a letter, I was told, represented like 1,000 opinions or more. In today's world, where very few people write actual letters, do you still see the value of a letter, a phone call, or an email? Where is the value of your efforts when you return on investment?
I would say number one is being there, but we know everyone can't. But if you have 10 people at the Capitol, that's a big deal. During 520, we probably had 100 people at the Capitol, and we were successful. So I think being at the Capitol is number one. I do think they don't ignore the emails. I will say if you do a form email, they lump them all together and they don't count them as individual emails. It needs to be a personal email. Even if someone else kind of gives you the basic information, it needs to be personal. And so that's very important. But I would say for me, and I'd love to hear others' opinions, being there is number one. But even if you can't be there, if you're sending productive emails and you're making phone calls, then it's again that persistence and just keeping your name in front of them. It's just marketing, right? It's like branding. Your name's out there, your name's out there. And we hope it brings success, but does that answer your question?
A follow-up I found in my years of being an activist is money is free speech. And so being a sponsor of your representative for a fundraiser or going to their fundraisers, that gets their attention.
And that's a good point. Because when we go to the Capitol, I think we all need to remember to compliment them on the things they've done that are good. Not just go down there and have our view and you're not doing this, or we would like for you to do this. But they all try, I believe, most of them. And they're held back, too, by many factors. So I think we need to compliment them when they do something right because we're appreciative of that. And so I agree with you.
Yeah, just a short add-on to that. I would absolutely say being there in person, and you see that very quickly. There are clearly paid people that are in that audience that you know they're being paid because it's the same people. I mean, I know the names of a half a dozen to a dozen election integrity people on the other team that are there every single meeting. And sometimes it's just myself, 3 other people, or sometimes just myself as the only guy in the room that's supporting our side on election integrity. So being down there does make a massive difference. And when I first started going to the State Board of Elections, I was one of 5 people in the room. And then it slowly built to where it was the entire room and 2 overflow rooms because we got so many people involved. It's kind of died back down quite a bit since then. But whenever we had the entire room and 2 overflow rooms, whenever they're used to seeing 5 people in the audience, 4 being paid, it made a big difference. So absolutely do that. Another thing is making public comment whenever you're down there so they know what you support. Even if you don't know much about the topic, just give them your name and say, I am in support of this. And you'll quickly become one of the experts in the room. I mean, it's very intimidating in the beginning, but once you start to get to know the people sitting up there, you know their names, they know who you are, the intimidation factor very quickly goes away. I mean, my background's mechanical engineering, and so I wasn't, I wasn't the public speaker that I have slowly become. And but again, it just takes you getting used to it, and everybody can do a fine job once you get used to it.
When you testify, I didn't know this, but I'm sure all of you do, ask for it to be part of the record. When you testify, you can ask for that to be part of the record, and it will be documented. And I didn't know that, so I just learned that. So I think that's very important to do that.
Well, and just as a follow-up for that, for people who may not know, so when you talk about testifying, what are you referring to?
That's true. When there is a bill coming before a committee, then normally what we do is we try to get enough people to come down and to testify against or for that bill. And when you do that, they usually give you 3 minutes, I believe now, to do that. And you go into the room where the committee meeting is being held. You sign your name up on a sheet to speak, and they will call you up. And you have 3 minutes to share with that committee your beliefs on that bill. It's very important that you're prepared for that. You need to know about the bill, or you need to be working with a group that can tell you, kind of give you what to say. And of course, you would know if you would be agreeing with them or you wouldn't be doing this on that bill. So that's what testifying is, and it's very, very important. And many times, depending on what the bill is, there could be expert witnesses that even come in. So, but usually it's us, and I want to thank you. Because of you, we get the 100 people at the Capitol, right? It's not just this. It takes those of us that are at home doing emails and informing people to bring it all together.
Yeah, I was going to ask which do you think is better? I mean, I don't know how much people change emails. even if you ask him to? Is a phone call better?
This is just me. I like phone calls, but I like emails too. So I always do phone call first, email second, but I actually do both.
All right. Any other questions? Yes, sir. And if you come into the microphone, that'd be useful. Anybody wants to ask a question, just please come up to the mic, and then.
And no blocking the mics.
Yeah. Yeah. No hugging it. Ask the question, then depart.
So I know they like to see individuals, and I've been taught that they like to count votes. More importantly, how much attention do they pay to online sources like Twitter? I guess that's my question.
I can give you a great example of how my Twitter feed has helped me get open record requests, for example. I guess it was last year, I was trying to get the certified list of voters. So that's, you could buy a voter roll, and that's good for telling you who is registered to vote at that point in time. The certified list is supposed to be a list of who can actually vote in that election, which has been a little loosey-goosey lately, to say the least. But I tried to get that last year. They weren't giving it to me. They were delaying, and I don't like to play this too often, but that one being that we had a few shenanigans, in my opinion, in 2020, I thought, you could do this again in 2024, so I want that certified list. And they were playing games, not giving it to me. So I did what I call the nuclear option, is I posted their response on my Twitter account. I reached out to several big people that have 100,000 plus followers. I've got 5,000, but I know people and they respect me because I've been doing this. So it immediately grew very, very, very quickly. The next day, I got it in my inbox. So imagine that. So it really does make a difference.
All right. Any more questions?
Chair in Cobb County and also a precinct chair. But what I'd really like to have, I have the voter list, for all the voters in each of my precincts. But a lot of people don't answer their phone. We could text, but that takes a lot of time. But how did you get that list? You talked about a email list. But what I'd really like to have is every one of my precinct chairs have that list for their precinct of people that care, emails, whatever, because I agree with what you said is most people don't know what's going on, what the vote is, or even if they should vote or how they should vote. So I have some people that would be able to call, but we don't have a list of people, a real good list of people to text or call or email. How do we get that?
The voter rolls don't have emails, and there's no
right
place to get it. So what I did. Thank you. Even though I one-upped him, he's still nice to me. Well, what I did was I started with some Republican clubs. Well, the first thing I did was I got 60 people to make calls to the people in their neighborhoods to tell them about Southeast Georgia Republican Assembly had endorsed the candidates that were endorsed. And I had them call people to tell them that this was available for information. And nobody answered their phones, and they talked to the answering machines. It really just basically didn't work. But I did have those 60 people that volunteered to call. And so that was the beginning of my list. And I kept them. And then later, when I needed people to go to the Board of Elections, I used those 60 people, and a bunch showed up. So then I started adding to it, and I went to the Republican clubs. And if I could get a membership list with emails, then I did. If I couldn't, I got a commitment on the part of the president to forward my emails to their 150 members or whatever it was. So those are ways to get a bunch at a time. Then I started, we had a block captain at one of the Republican clubs. We recruited we call them block captains. And they were responsible for shooting my emails out to everybody they knew on their contact list. So I quit with this cold calling. Doesn't work. It doesn't work even if they live down the street from you. It doesn't work. You know, I can say, I live right around the corner from you, blah, 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 and they never, no, it doesn't work. So, so I got the email addresses, and then I started asking them to give me all their contacts, all their solid Republican contacts on their contact list, their church group, the dog park, you know, the golf team, you know, whatever it was. I said, just send me all of your Republican contacts. The other thing is I just go to every sort. Like, there is nobody that's worked on my house that's not on my list. The guy that cuts the lawn, he's on my list. The guy that fixed my shutters on my list. The railing guy's on my list. You know, and you can pretty much tell when somebody's a Republican. It doesn't take, it just, you know, you can kind of worm it out of them. But anyway, they're all on my list. The people I sit next to at the bar are on my list. You know, I go to everybody. But the other thing is, I find that contacting people who will give you everybody on their list is a way to grab handfuls of emails at a time. So I now am edging up close to 1,500 on my email list, and I hope to have it be closer to 2,000 by the time primaries come around. You know, and I've got a pretty big county, but I'd like to have thousands. I'd like to keep going and have somebody after me keep going, because this is the only way they find out any information.
Yeah, let me add one more thing to that. Yes, absolutely. Getting involved. One avenue we have is, before we got involved in election integrity, we're avid gardeners. We had a big garden, so we just had a little honor system vegetable stand at the street. And so everybody in our town knows who we are because of that. And so we have an in that we live on a busy street. People know who we are. So when we talk to people, we've got an inroad. So we know them. They know who we are. So just getting to know your neighbors, getting to know your community, and I go a step further, that I look at the entire voter roll, and I pulled in all primary voting history from 2014 to current, so I immediately know which way everybody leans. I mean, I bought a boat last year. I knew which way that guy leaned before I had the first conversation. I bought a fish finder last weekend, and I knew everything about the guy. I mean, I didn't tell him happy birthday like I did with the guy that I bought the boat from, but I knew everything about him, and so I ended up sending him the list of all the duplicates in his county, and really, you know, opened his eyes, because I just talked about a few things. I knew he leaned the way we do. But you see things on Fox, CNN, all these things, you don't know what's real. Nobody knows what's real. It's all conspiracy theory or just made up AJC. So giving them real data, once you know which way they lean, it's easy to just give them facts, and that gets people involved. So knowing which way they lean, is especially in your neighborhood, next door, you know, my friends meet people at school. I know which way their parents lean right now before I ever meet them, just to start the conversation. And then that helps you build things quickly.
So my question is, Jason, which way do I lean on that list? I'm kidding.
I haven't looked you up, but most folks, I mean, before I meet them, I look them up, and I know a lot about them, especially if, you know, when I was buying a boat, I wanted to make sure I wasn't getting ripped off, so I knew where he worked, I knew the way he leaned, I knew he hadn't voted in a few years, so I talked to him about why, all the things I do, and he ended up voting for the first time in several years. So brought him around, because he was discouraged. He didn't want to vote, so he's like, what's the point? So I told him all the things I was doing, and actually the day I drove to test ride it was the day I got the numbered list of voters. So I was in the driveway, and I am just glowing. I just could not believe it showed up after they told me to go pound sand. So
well, next step, get them to join the GRA, right?
one step at a time.
All right, any more questions?
Jason, I'm an engineer as well. I know it's not rocket science, but I am a rocket scientist, so that'll be okay too. Are you working with Rick Richards and his Ellie tool?
I may have spoken to him last night, and yeah, we talk a lot. Rick is a hero in my eyes.
That is an incredible source for errors in our voter rolls. And if anybody, we're starting, I'm president of the Lanier Republican Assembly, and we're starting a group that's going to be looking at our counties and taking it to the boards, all the errors that are in our list. I just thank you for your work.
Absolutely. I've been telling Rick he needs to automate me out of this, and he tells me I'm not allowed to because it just makes me more powerful. So I don't have to spend all the hours analyzing. I've just got the data, or I can just give it to people in other counties. And I do give cuts of data to a lot of different counties every month, and those counties have almost no duplicates now because that county cares, and they fix the process. And in some of these counties, I hear them, they're offended that we found something because they take it personal, that they try not to make mistakes, whereas Fulton County tells me what a burden I am because I gave them 10,000 duplicates. It was so much work to clean this up. So, it's a night and day different.
You mentioned that you were basically asleep for 50 years, but obviously you have great values. We need everyone with great values. How do we reach old you or 50 years ago you?
I'm sorry, I didn't know all that.
Oh, how to reach you from years ago when you were asleep?
Oh, how did that happen?
Oh no, how would you have been able to be reached at the time? Into the mic. Oh. Microphone.
I don't know that I know the answer to that. I'm not sure I was reachable then. I did night law school, working motherhood. I was 24/7 on my life. And I really never had any interest in politics or government. So what motivated me, I told Jason, was fear. It was fear. I saw what was happening to our country, and so I worked like crazy because I didn't want to see this country destroyed. And I think, I wasn't sure we'd make another 4 years of a regime like Biden. So I don't have an answer to that. Do you have an answer to that?
The answer I give, and maybe it's because I'm still new to this, is I would have never believed I could have made an impact. And I tell people, I grew up near Chicago. I would have never bothered trying if I would have known Fulton County was the Chicago of the South. Because I know I couldn't make an impact in Chicago, but I naively went in thinking that, that this wasn't pure corruption. But once I got involved, I'm making a massive impact. And who would have thought, me reading an election integrity bill, I could actually add lines to that to improve it. I was just a guy living my life, wife and 2 kids, just enjoying life, not, thinking that the quote unquote old gray haired guys were, they're the ones in charge. They'll do it. Well, if we don't do it, they don't, even if they wanted to, they can't by themselves. It takes all of us to do it. And if I can find these things, my background was mechanical engineering. I'm not an IT guy, but somehow I figured out how to go through 8 million lines of voter rolls in the voter roll and find the errors. It's just a matter of diligence. It's a matter of passion. It's a matter of find what you can do, and you can make a difference because there aren't that many people doing this. You go to the Capitol, you might be the only one helping on a certain issue, and you very well could be the expert in the room just because there's that few people involved. And the last thing I want to add is if you're not involved, they are. And if you want your vote to count, you've got to cast because they always show up. The other team they're a machine and they always show up.
3 times.
And do you think that all this advice that you're giving is good for city councils and county commissions as well?
Yes.
100% across the board. And I would recommend start at city council, start at your board of commissioners, because if you start as close to home as you can, one, that's your own backyard. Those are people that maybe you go to school with them, maybe you golf with them. These people live close to you. And you'll start to get comfortable with how to read this, how to make public comment. It's a smaller room than, say, the Board of Commissioners in Fulton County that is a massive room that if there's 200 people there, it might be intimidating. So depending on who you are and your character, and also improving your speaking skills, in learning that you've got to know every one of those council members, where they stand, what they think about things. And I won't go too far, but one of the mistakes I made early on is one of the folks on one of the committees asked me a question that was clearly to derail me, and I gave him the benefit of the doubt thinking he cared. He didn't care. He was just trying to throw me off my pace and distract me, and it worked. And the next time, it's like, I know you don't care. I know what you're up to. So getting to know the personalities, getting to know where they stand, all those skills can be honed at the local level before you go a little further out. So absolutely.
That's great advice. I want to stick up for the young moms and dads. They don't have time. Our government has made it impossible almost for two people to stay at home. What's happening within our schools is causing anxiety and depression in so many of our children that they can't even manage that. The psychologist on my board said his business has grown because SEL, he believes, is part of the reason why. They used to see children that cut every 3 or 4 months. It's every week. PTSD is on the rise. Suicide is on the rise. Depression's on the rise. Our parents aren't able to parent like I think I was, and maybe most of you in this room, where we could really enjoy. We had struggles, but we didn't have these kinds of struggles. So I want to call on all of us, grandparents, older people. We need to be mentoring these young women. We need to come alongside our own children and step in when we can and help when we can. But we also need to be involved, and we're standing up because guess what? My grandchild's going to look at me one day and say, why didn't you do something, Nana? I am their example. We are their example of how we protect our family. So I think it's very, very important.
Yeah, and now that I've had a chance to think about the question, I guess my presumption in doing the email thing is that informed citizens are more likely to participate. One of the problems with me being not paying attention for 50 years is I wasn't informed. I didn't know how bad things were getting. I just assumed everything was going along fine. So I'm trying to keep more and more people in the loop because everybody I know is very informed and they get passionate about this or that, but they basically know a lot. And everybody in this room knows a lot. But the people out there, the average Joe that I was, they don't know anything or very little. So one person said to me, yeah, I heard something about Raffensperger not being good, but I don't know why. You know, okay.
I can tell them why.
I think we all could. But I think information is the key. Get these people informed.
All right. Well, thank you. Well, with that, I think we're about out of time. So, all right. One last question, and then we're done. Yes.
I'm Mary Beth Bugey from Catoosa County, and I'm on the I'm the chairman of our Catoosa County Republic Election Integrity Committee, and that's my hot button is election integrity. I know I've communicated with you before, Jason, but you said you had an X account. What is your X account?
It's my first name, my last name, and USA at the end. So Jason Frazier, USA.
Okay. And I do speak every month at our Election Security Committee along with one or two others on our committee, and we're educating our board, Election Committee Board, or Board of Election Committee. So, and I've introduced the book, Stolen Elections. I've always talked about either VoterGA information or Georgians for Truth. So I'm always introducing them to new information, keeping the board educated. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. And one quick last question from me, and then we'll thank you all for your time. Wild Hog Supper on January 11th. Is that a good thing for people to go to if they want to see their legislators? Wild Hog Supper? The Wild Hog Supper. It's at the Georgia Freight Depot. It's every year. Have you guys been there? Not to that? Well, it's January 11th, Georgia Freight Depot. I think Department of Ag puts it on. I mean, I got this note from, I believe it's from our parliamentarian.
Yes, the Wild Hog Supper is on January 11th down at the Georgia Freight Depot. It's a $50 ticket, but basically all of the people we've been talking about, John Burns, et cetera, will be there. I'm not saying you'll have a chance to talk to them, but it's always nice to hear what they have to say. And you are supporting, food for hungry Georgians. So, but yeah, a lot of your legislators will be there.
Right before session, I think. Yeah. All right. Well, with that, thank you all on the panel, and I hope everyone's learned something. Thank you so much. Oh.